Education is one of the solid foundation in life. It's what brought our life forward, our future. But so many children throughout the world have to suffer through this step in life. Is this unchangeable? Who is to be blamed for this? Maybe the right answer is what is right in front of us.
Thank you for being invited here today. And it's the end of the afternoon almost. We have heard and listened to many stories, many inspiring stories. I want to tell you something about my own field experiences in approaching educational change processes in different ways. My presentation is entitled Happily Different, because I'm very convinced, based on my daily practice in schools, that we can approach educational change processes in different ways than we are doing it at this moment. And when we will do it in different ways, in relational ways, then what I see in my practice is that it makes people more happy. That's what I want to tell you about. Children are not happy when they are experiences education, and even the worst thing is that they experience a lot of unhappiness already when they're 2 or 3 years old. And the worst thing is that they need to go to their schools for many years, but already in the primary beginning they are a little bit, not happy in this system. But when we would listen to children and when we would use them as experts of the educational change processes, then suddenly the change process changes. So what I do in my work is not only talk with governments or talking with the so-called educational specialists, the experts who have a title, a PhD or a master title, but talk with everyone in the social construct. Appreciate every participant in the social construct, even if it's the housekeeper, or it's the woman who takes the telephone, or the parent, or the child, even the young child. We can use them as experts of the change process because they experience education every day. And I think the only people who can produce educational change are students and their teachers, and nobody else. But sometimes we seem to forget this. Sometimes perhaps these children have these lists, the to-do list. Wake up in the morning, survive at school, and then go back to sleep. But I think education should not do this. But education should make the dreams from children come true. But not only dreams from children, also dreams of the teachers. And what I experience in the Western world is that there is very less space, room for teachers to use their passion, to use their talents, also to use the passion and talents of children, students, to make dreams come true. We can establish positive educational change processes by putting attention, focus on positive relationships between all people who produce educational change. And again, we must not see students and teachers as consumers of the educational change process, but we must make them producers, active producers. So I often work with little children from kindergarten, aged 4, 5, 6 years old, and I use them as educational experts of the educational change process. I talk with parents who often are not seen in good ways by teachers, but I use them by appreciating their expertise because they experience the stories of their children at home, and we can use their knowledge for improving our own schools and education. And suddenly you will see that a lot of people, they start to get committed to the educational change process. So education change is people work. We must see educational change with all its human qualities. It's designed by humans, for humans, to benefit humans. And it's first of all, it's constructed by the teachers and the students. And often we still forget this last point, I think. When you look at my experiences of educational change processes, and when we approach it from relational ways and relational orientations, then what I see in my work, when we use appreciation, then trust and respect where you were talking about this morning, are certainly the products of working together. So trust and respect is what as I look at it, it's not something which is in the individual mind of the individuals, but it's a product of working together, of interacting with each other. And certainly respect and trust, it can fluctuate. Today it's less, tomorrow it's a little bit more, and it depends every time of the social construct where I'm taking part of, and the way we talk about each other. So I see this as a very important product of educational change processes. But where I live in the Western world, they seem to forget this, because they think academic results are the most important product of educational change. I think that's just a part of the story. We forget trust and relationships. And many students and children, they fail in the present system, and they are blamed for failing, or the teachers are blamed for failing. But we should stop blaming children and blaming teachers for a failing educational school system, because that's not at all the problem. But we construct context within our school system which causes problems. So the problem is not in the child, and the problem is not in the teacher, but it's what we produce in the present system. So sustainable change, what I saw in my research, the most important thing is sustainable change is being in relation. The business as usual is when we look at educational change, is that we still have this mindset in which we think that change is makeable, manageable, plannable, predictable, controllable, and teachers are made and are seen mostly as consumers. They are isolated from the real school life, you could say. So I think two aspects are very important when we want to move on with our educational change, that is stepping away from this individual paradigm, stepping into this new paradigm of relational orientation. And what we need to do is that we must become aware of our blindness of the common educational construct. Because mostly we think in the Western world that we are modern in approaching educational change, but what I see is that perhaps the outside is modern, but we are still doing it with the old framework in the way of thinking that educational processes are makeable, but they are not makeable. The second thing is that we need to step out, and we should use new mindsets. So when we look at this blindness, then we see change as static rather than dynamic. We see change more as visible, but we should approach change not only as visible aspects, but also the invisible aspects are very important, like emotions, ideas, assumptions, you know, all these kind of things. And we must also go away from this isolated approach and move towards the more dynamic and relational approach in the new paradigm. So change is rather dynamic than static. And change is both visible and invisible. And change is relational rather than just isolated. Change is constant in our universe, but we seem to forget this. So in my work, the time is too short for today, but you can download a free book, an e-book, when you go to internet. When you Google my name, Loek Schoenmakers, Happily Different, then you can get this free download, and you can read a little bit more about my work. It's based on social constructionism, and social constructionism is very, very interesting, because what I do in my work is putting the social construct, putting people in the center of educational change. Educational change in human terms, but also taking these relational positions. I could talk here for hours, but what I see on daily basis, even last week, is that when we use this new mindset, then suddenly there are many different ways of approaching educational change. And what I see in my work is that when we do this, then it makes people happy in the process.